Alrighty, so John Mayall Part 2. This is going to be the Polydor years, or Polydor, however you want to pronounce it. If you're just watching this one first, what the heck are you doing? Watch the first one first. This is the second one. So I'm just going to go over some stuff. This, of course, the London years, which was all sort of the John Mayall bombast sort of stuff, the heavy guitars and all that good stuff. Polydor was more so kind of experimental. Definitely had a little bit more freedom than he did on the first ones, I would say. Style-wise, you can definitely tell he has a little bit more influence on kind of where he's going. Sure gets the producer credits on a lot of the albums. So we'll start with John Mayall, The Turning Point, which, John Mayall, some people may say he's very inconsistent, but I think that's part of being an artist, is being able to expand and to explore new territories. This album is definitely a prime example of it. So I'm going to read a little bit of the blurb. I know I don't really read a lot of the liner notes, but it says, "The time is right for a new direction in blues music. Having decided to dispense with heavy lead guitar and drums, usually a must for blues groups today, I set out forming a new band which would be able to explore seldom used areas within the framework of low-volume music. This album is the result of this experiment, and it was recorded live in the Fillmore East Theater, New York, after only 4 weeks experience of each other's playing." So Steve Thompson, of course, he was in the band with Mick Taylor, kind of the two albums before Bare Wires, and then also Blues from Laurel Canyon. So but John Mark and also Johnny Allman kind of are in this album. So it's really cool. Definitely it's very low acoustic music, not heavy guitar like you're used to. So it's definitely an interesting sound that you may not hear anywhere else, kind of as far as with the particular music. So, and of course, Room to Move is on here, which is a fantastic. It's a musician's need for personal freedom to love without entanglement in D flat, in case you were jamming at home. So it's a really great song. Now, what's really cool about this album is that normally you see a band where they put out a really good album, and then the next album that they release is going to be a live album. This is actually kind of the reverse of that. So the live album comes first, and then Empty Rooms is the next one. So kind of same lineup. The only difference is Larry the Mole Taylor from Canned Heat is featured on this instead. So I believe this is from 1970. I keep saying Eric Clapton, but John Mayall is going for some of the songs. You can definitely tell he's sort of taking a hippie mentality with it, sort of a conservationist sort of thing. There's some things there are definitely some things that he talks about that are really never talked about. So kind of a protesty kind of thing with it as well. So. Interesting kind of album. Right at the beginning of the 70s, he kind of talks about how, the 60s, how the big, that everybody wanted openness and free love and all that, but then it really created a part of loneliness, which is we talked about, where the title "Empty Rooms" comes from, where when people end up being alone and empty, you find that the world is really not what it's all cracked about to be. So he knew years ago, right away that the Flower Power movement was not happening. So next we got USA Union, which is John Mayall and Don Sugarcane Harris, as well as Larry Taylor and Harvey Mandel. So you have a couple guys from Canned Heat joining up with him, which he talked about, living with the Bear, which they bombed the Bear Height way back in the Laurel Canyon album. So he kind of has been friends with these guys for quite some time, since I think he moved to Laurel Canyon. So not really the best album, but still some pretty good tracks on it. Again, like we were talking about with there's stuff called like Nature's Disappearing on it. The same kind of thing again, where he's sort of talking about conservationist sort of hippie mentality with this. So another good album. It is what it is. John Mayall Memories, which Jerry McGee and Larry Taylor, not really a featured drummer on this album, so I think they must have used like some session musicians. Kind of it's John Mayall sort of looking back at his past and kind of thinking about what he did and how he got where he was. So of course that's him as a young child on the cover, but definitely some good tracks. I There's some sitar in here, which is kind of an interesting kind of, something a little bit different, especially on the title track, Memories. So pretty interesting cover on the inside as far as with how that's set up with the lyrics on it. So great album. John Mayall Jazz Blues Fusion, kind of another live album that he released. Larry Taylor is still kind of the only one still in the band. 1972 is when this came out. And one very, very interesting part about this, and I always like to talk about this part of the album, is there's people in the audience just yelling, "Room to move, room to move." And if you think about it, 1972, that album came out like 3 years before, and 3 years now is not as long of a time as what 3 years was in the late 60s and early 70s. If you think about what the Beatles did in 3 years, some bands didn't even exist for 3 years, but yet they put out monumental albums. Cream, for an example. I don't even believe they were around for 2.5 years. But 3 years later, these people were yelling "Room to Move," and John Mayall is just kind of like, did you come to hear a record, or did you come to hear, a new band? They got a whole new thing going. So, which is, good. And then, like, as we talked about, with sort of the, artists being able to expand on their artwork and things like that, which is, I think is definitely key. So, and last but not least, I have the latest edition by John Mayall. This one is from 1974. John Mayall, of course, sort of the excess of the 70s here. The huge broken leg here. He did this, he bought a mansion, and he had this club called the Brain Damage Club, which is, you were in the Brain Damage Club if you jumped from the 3rd floor balcony down into the swimming pool. And he did, and he broke his leg, so lesson learned, I guess. But again, another one with features Larry Taylor. Larry Taylor stayed on for quite a long time with John Mayall, sort of after kind of Canned Heat sort of, disintegrated of sorts. So this one is, kind of a strange, kind of has a little bit of a R&B sort of funky sort of sound to it. It doesn't really work, I think, as well as it could have. But Gasoline Blues is on here, which is, I sing that every time I'm sort of, at the pump. So good album. So great artists. I'd like to hear your comments about it. Thanks for all your comments and subscriptions, and thanks for watching. And we will see you tomorrow after some fantastic record shopping. So take care.